guys! So if you're a planner addict, chances are that you've tried lots of different diary layouts, various types of monthly, weekly, daily layouts and all sorts of different configurations, and you probably have some opinions about which ones you like and which ones you don't like and why. So I thought that it would be fun to do a video going through various types of diary layouts, planner layouts, and discussing my experiences with them and which ones I like and for which purposes, and what I like about them, what I don't like about them, etc. So you will see that I have here this fine stack of planners, which consists of all types of different diary layouts. And so I thought that we could go through them and have a chat about them. So the first thing to discuss is the kind of layouts that I think of as sort of extras, that are very important extras, but that are kind of supplementary, that aren't like the main body of your planner. So I'll just go through them quickly to begin with, because many planners have them and there aren't as many different types of configurations, I think. So if we, let's see, we'll just take a few of these to start with. You have, in most planners, I feel like you have some kind of yearly layout. So for example, in, not that one doesn't. Sometimes they don't, which is always surprising. This one. We have this kind of like year at a glance, year on one page. That's pretty standard. It's interesting that this one doesn't have it. Some of them don't have any kind of supplementaries, like this one. It just goes straight into the weekly view, which I'll be talking about in a minute. But usually you get something like this, which I don't really use these a lot. I use the one in my cousin just for outlining like kind of important things that it's nice to be able to see at a glance, like dates that I'm going to be away or a summer course. So kind of blocks of time where I can just, sort of visually see this is what my year looks like. So, like I use that a bit here. But not really much more than that. I think there's some people who do more with these, like use them for goals and things like that, but I don't. Then you get this kind of layout, the vertical sort of month per column. I really, really like these. Moleskine has them. Oh, had them. Sorry, they don't have them anymore. They've switched it to this, which apparently they had in the olden days, and then they took it away, and now they brought it back. But I think that this is really useful because it just is a very, very kind of tidy, concise way of being able to see exactly what you have, kind of for the month. And since you usually have like 6 months per page, the cousin does it the same way. It's just a really convenient way of like kind of looking at your year and your sort of months at a glance. So I find that very useful, but there isn't a huge amount of variety, so I feel like there's not a lot to say about that sort of layout. Then the next type of sort of supplementary layout, as I think of them, is the kind that you get in this. It varies. So the most common is obviously the month on 2 pages, as in the cousin. I always end up using my cousin for a model of a lot of things just because it seems to have everything. So I never had one of these historically for the sort of many years that I was planning before I got into the planner community, and I didn't know what I was missing. I just had a weekly layout or a daily layout, and I didn't think that I needed anything else. But since I've had this, it's changed my life. I think it's fantastic because it's just, again, another way that you can see your month really easily at a glance, see when you've got appointments, see when you're free, or if you use it for tracking. So like I use my different planners, I use the month on 2 pages or the month per page very differently in my different planners. And in this one, I use it for tracking. So for things like when we were staying in Wales, they only emptied the bins every 3 weeks, the rubbish bins, which was kind of a shock coming from London where they empty them every week. So, you really had to be careful and time it. So I used it for tracking that. Or, like just kind of like other household tasks when we've done things, I use it for tracking that. And it's great just to be able to see at a glance. But in terms of the layout, I don't think you get a huge amount of variation. Sometimes you get, something like this where you have a kind of deviation from the standard month on 2 pages, like this one where it's actually 2 months per page, or the Moleskine, which has 1 month per page. I think my favorite is definitely the classic month on 2 pages, just because that gives you the most room. And, if you have a month on a page, it really doesn't give you a huge amount of space to write. So if I had to choose between this and the vertical layout, this one that we just saw, I would choose the vertical layout because I think that actually gives you more space. Although obviously I wouldn't want to have to choose. I'd rather have them both. But yeah, I don't think there's a huge amount to say about those. Where it really gets interesting, and where there are lots of kind of different room for different opinions and different preferences, is when you get into the sort of body of the planner, meaning you're either week on 1 page, week on 2 pages, or day per page, or day on 2 pages. And so that's what we will get into now. Okay, so as far as I know, the kind of biggest sort of overview that you can get in a planner is a week on 1 page. I have heard of inserts. I think that Miss Vicky B at one point had an insert that she showed in a video which was 2 weeks per page, which effectively is the same as a month on 2 pages, right? Except that I think it was organized kind of more like in a vertical, like weekly format. But in terms of like actual printed planners that you can buy, I've never seen that. So I think that a week on 1 page is certainly, from any planner that I have, that's where I would start, is in like kind of the biggest chunk of time that you can see at a glance. So this is a planner that I have that is a week per page. So it usually has an illustration on 1 page, but sometimes you get a page where, let's see, you get a spread where you have 1 week here and 1 week here, so you can actually see 2 weeks at a glance. And I think that this is quite a nice layout if this is not your main planner, right? So if you're just using this for either one specific thing like exercise tracking, this would be really good for that. Even as a food tracker, I guess you could use it if it's just for one person, but it would be a little bit squished. So I really think it's best for like a sort of single issue, or if you're using it for something where you don't need to track a lot, and you maybe have like, I don't know, 1 or 2 things to write in it per day. So I was using this as a home planner, and it was okay when I was just using it to write down like sort of joint appointments and where I was and where James was, but really that's the extent of it. The thing that's nice about it is that it really allows you to see your whole week easily. So if you're using it for like appointments or something, and you just had like 1 appointment per day, you could just see what your whole week looks like. But I find it a bit frustrating for anything more than that, because you just run out of room so easily, and you end up writing in the margins, and unless you have really tiny handwriting, and then you could fit a good deal in. But the other thing I think is that with these week on 1 page formats, you generally don't get lines. And this is another issue, the kind of pro-line, anti-line stance. Would you prefer to have lines or not? I generally, if it's something where I'm writing, definitely I have to have lines, because otherwise I just feel like it gets messy far too easily. And that's just me with like my handwriting would get crooked, and I can write quite small, but I can't guarantee that it will, kind of stay neat and in straight lines. But if you're just using this like for writing a single thing, then I think that's what it's best for. So yeah, I don't know how people manage like using a planner like this as their only planner. I actually did used to use this as my only planner, but I think I must not have written very much down. I must have just written down like, important appointments, and that's it, because there's really not much room for anything else. So that's a week per page. I think it's good if you even need an overview, but I would prefer to get my overview from one of the extras that you get in a lot of these planners, like the vertical month per column or the month on 2 pages, rather than as the actual planner. You can also have a sort of week per page setup that I think is a bit more flexible, or sort of like gives you more scope. And that is in the so-called Verso setup, which is what the Hobonichi Weeks has and also what the Muji Planner has. And you can also get it in quite a few other planners. So like Moleskines have quite a popular option that's this sort of Verso layout, and so does Paper Blanks, which I'm going to be bringing in later. That's the one that we were looking at before, this one. So with the Verso, when I first saw this, it kind of gave me flashbacks to this sort of layout with the week per page, and I thought, that's not going to be very useful. There won't be enough room to write everything in. But I think the genius of it, which I have, kind of really, really experienced since I've been using the weeks, is that you actually have double the space, because depending on how you use it, you can use this for your appointments and then use this for to-dos, or just kind of treat this as one big horizontal day. And so you actually do have, it's effectively a week on 2 pages, but it's organized like this instead of half of the week here and half of the week here. And that's how I think of this layout now. And I think it's a really great layout, because it sort of gives you the benefits that you get from the week on 1 page, which is you get to see your whole week at a glance, without the days being split over 2 pages. But at the same time, it gives you more room. So I think that this is really like kind of an excellent compromise if you want to be able to see your whole week, like just from sort of going from the top of the page to the bottom of the page. It's kind of the same format as this, but you get double the writing space. Obviously in this one, this is smaller than this one, so it doesn't quite work exactly like that, but somehow psychologically I feel like there's more room to write here. It also helps that I think in most cases, most of this type of layout that I've seen, you have sort of like a blank box here on the left, but then you have either lines or grids on the right hand side. So the Muji diary does the same thing. It's almost exactly the same layout as the weeks, where you have a blank page with the dates here, and then you have a gridded page here. I like the way the weeks does it a bit better, because with the weeks you can see that it's even, like the top is even over both sides, so you can really seamlessly just integrate this so that you've got one big day for Monday and one big day for Tuesday, etc. And then you've got a bit of extra space for notes at the bottom here, and this is a quote, so you don't really feel like it's off balance. Whereas with this one, it's kind of a bit harder to imagine that you just have one big day, because you have the blank space up here, and then this is like the whole thing is gridded, so it doesn't kind of flow as seamlessly. And the Moleskine Verso is like that as well, so you have like a sort of blank page with the days on the left, and then you have lines on the right. But it's still not too hard to convert it if you wanted to, make it into like kind of big horizontal days. But in either case, I think that it works really well, because if you just treated this as your days and this is your notes, you still have all of this space for your week, so you can write whatever you want. You could, you can make to-do lists or shopping lists or a combination of those things, and just have your appointments here. So I think that this is a really, really good layout. If you just, you can't do too much really detailed planning with times. I think that's the only issue about these. So like all of these things, it just depends on what you want it for. It's kind of like, one layout might be fantastic in a certain context, but rubbish in another context. And it's not like there's anything wrong with the layout, it's just what you need it for. So for example, this Verso layout that I'm using as a personal planner works great because I don't really need to have like a detailed kind of broken down hour by hour schedule for my personal planning. So like I write in, things that are timed over here or things that I have to do on a particular day, but it's not like there are tons and tons of them. So I might have, I don't know, 1 or 2 things in a day that I have to do at a particular time. And then the rest are just like kind of general to-dos. So it works really well for that. But for work, I don't think that this would work. And I've actually thought about it because I like the fact that it's so light. And I, was thinking, could I get away with having 1 week's as a personal planner and then another week's as a work planner? And I really don't think I could, because I'll show you in a minute, the way that I like to use my work planner is I like to have a really detailed breakdown of exactly when I'm doing what. And you just can't do that here. So, yeah, I think that this is a fantastic layout. It's really convenient, but it's not good if you have a lot of timed things and you want to be able to break down your day in detail. So moving on from the Verso layout, we go into the week on 2 pages territory. So with the week on 2 pages, I feel like you have a lot of different options. First of all, you have horizontal versus vertical. So I think that's like the big thing. And anyone who has been, following the developments in the Erin Condren world has, know that there's this huge debate going on. Like some people who like the vertical style and some people who like the horizontal style and some people who like both for different things and some people who thought that they would like one and then it turned out that they didn't like it and they had to go back to the other one, which I just think is really, really fascinating because I love planner psychology, so like why we like the things that we like and what works for one person. And so that's why I thought that, it would be interesting to just devote a whole video to different layouts, because I think that this is quite an intriguing aspect of planning. So one type of week on 2 pages that you get is the horizontal layout, where you have half the week on one side and then half the week on the other side. And obviously it varies a bit depending on whether you have a shared weekend or not. So this one has the dreaded shared weekend, which, as you know, I don't like. But the thing about this is that it really kind of changes the layout so that each weekday is much bigger. If you compare that to this one, which is also a horizontal week on 2 pages, you have a very different look because, see if I can get those both in frame. Each day, each day has equal space, which I like much better, but obviously that means that each one is going to be smaller. And then you've got some space for notes at the bottom. And I really like this just because I like every day to have equal weighting. And I think it's useful to have a space for notes that isn't tied to a specific day. But aside from that, that's like basically the concept is that you've got all of this space to write, going that way, and then you move on to the next day. And I think again, like it depends on what you're using it for. Like for me, for a week on 2 pages, I actually kind of now prefer the vertical layout with the times, but it depends on what it's for. Again, so like, I really, really like this type of layout for something like my home planner, where, as you can see, I like having space to put stickers down, and I also don't have that much stuff to record, because this is just used for like joint appointments, etc. So I think a layout like this really works well for that, because you don't need to make lists. This is not good if you want to make lists, obviously. You can make some lists, but it's not ideal for, kind of like long lists of to-dos or for times. So this is another thing, is that you've just got this like kind of big open space here, and on this one there are no lines. So I think that this is ideal for something where you want to do a lot of decoration, and you don't have a huge number of tasks and things to keep track of, or appointments, and so you can just put down stickers like I do here. Everything goes on a sticker, and there aren't too many things going on at once, so it doesn't really matter that you don't have structure. I think this is the thing about it. You don't have a lot of structure here. You just have your box, and you can do what you want with it. So I think that this lends itself to sort of like more creative planning. But it's not good if you have a lot of specific tasks to do. I actually think that for that type of planning, it's better not to have lines, because this one has got lines, and the lines just get in the way. I don't need them because I'm using stickers. So it would actually be nicer not to have lines, because then I would just have this nice plain background. But if you're using this for writing appointments, then, and you're actually writing in the planner, then I would definitely prefer to have the lines, because as I said, I can easily get messy without lines. So yeah, I think if I were just using this as a kind of straight, like sort of more serious planner, like kind of without decoration, where I just wanted to get the things down, then I would choose the lines. But then I kind of feel like I wouldn't quite know what to do with the horizontal layout. And I think that this is sort of the issue that like people have, the people who try the horizontal layout and say that it doesn't work. I really understand that, because I kind of feel like, for me, this somehow naturally feels like it would lend itself more to like journaling, or something where you have to write prose, like where you have to write sentences. Whereas for me with planning, usually I only have to write, like short things, a couple of words, like, I don't know, teaching 12 to 2 or cinema 8:30, that kind of thing, rather than like, I am going to go to the cinema at 8:30, which is somehow what I would picture if you had something like this. To me, this seems to me more like it would work as a journal. So I'm always interested to see how people approach the horizontal planner, because it's not like I dislike it. I'm just not quite sure how to make use of the space. If you have lines like this and it's kind of structured, the only way I can think of to do it is to divide it into sections, and then I think it would work. Like if you had home, work, personal, or morning, afternoon, evening, or something like that. So basically to kind of convert it more into an almost like pseudo vertical type layout within a horizontal layout. That's how I would approach this if I were using it as a, kind of less wacky planner. So yeah, that is kind of my feeling about the horizontal week on 2 pages. I'm just kind of not quite as sure how to deal with appointments and tasks and things like that. But I would definitely choose the one with lines. Then we get another type of week on 2 pages, the vertical layout. And as you can probably tell, given by how much of a Hobonichi fangirl I am, this is my favorite layout. Obviously, I like it best when there's equal space given to each day, as the Hobonichi cousin does. And I really like this because, first of all, when you have this type of vertical layout, you get a space for notes somewhere on the page, just, because if you have equal weighting given to every day, you'll be left with the extra space. And I really like that, because I think it's very convenient to be able to put in things that you don't know when you're going to have to do, but you're going to have to do sometime during the week. The same as what you get with the horizontal layout, that can work as well. But I think for like kind of really, really hardcore planning, which for me is work planning, having the vertical layout with times works really well, because then I can kind of map out my entire day, and then also kind of have the stuff that doesn't have to be at a specific time. And I really like that. I think that like having the times is just excellent for that sort of thing. However, having times doesn't work for this type of planning. So like for me, it's my home planner that's all of this like kind of, really colorful decorative stuff. And by the way, I put all the decorative stickers down afterwards because otherwise I would never be able to find anything. So this is what the rest of this week looks like. These are the only appointments and things that we have to do. And then I'll just cover it with stickers afterwards because I like to look back on the completed spreads. But for this type of planning where I'm only like putting things down with stickers and don't care that much about like having it be really organized in terms of, like having the day be very strictly laid out, it actually would be annoying having times. So when our home planner was in a Filofax, I was using the vertical week on 2 pages that came with the Filofax, and that has times, and I ended up covering them with washi tape because it looked unsightly to me. It was bothering me that there were times there and I wasn't using them, because for something like this, like we really don't need to have the whole day laid out. It's irrelevant. And so I think that like there are cases when having this would just be annoying. And this is one of the reasons that a cousin didn't work as our home planner. That was actually the first home planner that we tried. And I just didn't like it at all because this was totally, like we weren't using it. And I kind of feel like if a planner has a feature and you're not using it, sometimes it can be annoying. And I know I'm not alone here because you see so many people who like, when Erin Condren had the morning, afternoon, evening labels, like it's kind of like a whole industry evolved around, like making stickers to cover up those labels. And so I always felt very comforted to know that I wasn't alone in feeling like if there's a feature that you don't use, it kind of annoys you that it's there and you don't want it to be there. So I think times, definitely, depending on what type of planning you want to do, they're not always your friend. But like for work planning, it's sort of indispensable. I couldn't live without them. So I really, really like that for this sort of planning as a work planner. Or it doesn't have to be work. It could be if you have a lot of appointments that are not work related, it equally would be useful to have the times. And then the vertical layout, I think, is better for that because it's an interesting thing, actually. I feel like usually when you have times, it's generally a vertical layout. I can't think of a planner that I've seen that's horizontal but also has times. Let me know if you have seen one. Then you have a kind of variation on this, but a very similar sort of thing in the Happy Planner. So this again, like this is sort of my favorite type of week on 2 pages because it gives equal space to every day and then it's got a place for notes here. But this one does it slightly differently because it doesn't have times. And this was kind of a new concept to me, I think, when I first sort of joined the planner community, because the planners that I'd had before always had lines. I wish I had one to show you, but sadly, I don't have any of them. And I think I mentioned in another video, the shop that I used to get them in London, there was a Hebrew bookshop and it just closed down, which is really sad. But it had lines and it had time. So it was kind of like... It was a week on 2 pages, sort of, it didn't have a great timeline, but I was used to sort of like putting things in at times. So just this idea of having a vertical column and not having any times was like kind of a surprise to me. I was like, what's this? No times. And this morning, afternoon, evening concept that I first saw with the Erin Condren and, then with the Happy Planner also was somehow very, very new and I wasn't quite sure what to do with it. I think, like for me, as you know, this works best as a meal planner because it just seems, a meal tracker and a meal planner. It's kind of evolving. We're using the monthly pages on this for meal planning and then the weekly pages for tracking. And it's perfect for that because you've got morning, afternoon, evening. I'm not sure as an actual planner how that would work. I know that people obviously do use these as their like kind of everyday planners, but for me, that somehow I would rather have times. If I was going to be using this, like kind of for my main daily planner, I would want to have times rather than morning, afternoon, evening, because I kind of feel like it can be difficult to separate. Like, what if you have something that starts in the morning and then continues into the afternoon? Like, where do you write it? Or how do you sort of make the cutoff? Like, I'm often not quite sure, like, when afternoon turns into evening. And for a meal planner, it doesn't, tracker, it doesn't really matter that much because, I just put in if it was light out, I put it under afternoon, and as soon as I feel like it's kind of eveningy, I put it in under evening. So maybe that's how people use these as their planners. Let me know if you've got experience of this and how you do it, because I would kind of feel like I would either I'd write the times in myself, and then I'd be like, well, I'm not sure if this is morning or afternoon, and I'd sometimes want to be able to kind of overlap, and I would probably like end up, like kind of drawing a line, and then it would look messy. So I kind of feel like I would rather just have a plain vertical column with nothing and be able to write all of the times in myself, or I'd rather have like, kind of hourly or ideally half hourly times broken down so that I could decide exactly where I wanted to put things. But yeah, that's sort of my only thought on this, is that I kind of feel like it's somehow a bit vague, and would leave me feeling kind of unsure about where to put things. So it's like kind of between, it's not like so structured that you have times and you know exactly where to put things, and it's not so unstructured that you can put things wherever you want to. That's kind of my feeling with it. But it could be that if I was using this as a planner, I would just get used to it and I'd be like, yeah, afternoon. I think that what often people seem to have done with this instead is cover these up, and instead of morning, afternoon, evening, make them into different sections like work, home, personal, or like appointments, to-dos, and other or something. And that makes sense to me, because I could see then you'd have a box where you could write a list for all of your work stuff, and then a box where you could write a list for all of your home stuff. And I think that would work really well. It's sort of the same concept, like you can do that with this if you made it into 3 sections, which effectively I think would be actually the same. This one would be going that way, and this one is going that way, but you really have this almost the same amount of space to write in, because if you block this off, instead of having this like long expanse of writing, you'd have like a little box, and here you also have a little box, if that makes sense. So it doesn't really matter whether your boxes are stacked on top of each other or side by side, if that makes any sense. So yeah, that's what I think about the week on 2 pages. I really like all of the different variations, but I kind of gravitate more towards the vertical, because I can see how to use them immediately. Maybe it's because I'm used to times, and also because I like making lists, that somehow seems obvious. So with the horizontal one, I feel like I have to block it into smaller units, or else cover it with stickers. Then we move into the final category. I've got this giant stack of leaning tower of planners over here. So here we have a day per page. And this is kind of the opposite extreme of the week on 1 page. This is sort of like the most detailed level that I have ever seen in a planner that I have. I think that a day on 2 pages is something that, as far as I know, I've only seen that as inserts for ring bound planners. I've never seen anything like that in like a bound planner, or an arc planner, or a traveler's notebook, in fact. So yeah, I think that the day per page is kind of like the standard, very sort of detailed level planning that you can get in lots of different formats. So I used a day per page for 2014. It was this Moleskine, and I really liked it, but I think that one of the reasons that I liked it is that I was coming from this much smaller format. So the diary that I'd had before was probably A6 at the biggest, and I was constantly frustrated with running out of room. So when I decided to like switch to a Moleskine, I was just like, I need lots of room. That was the only thing that I thought about. I was just like, lots of room. So a day per page is great because it gives you lots of room. And the thing that I like about it is, okay, so you can see that like some days in here there was more going on than others, and it was just kind of nice to have the freedom to be able to write, like as much as I wanted. And I ended up putting in a lot of other things as well. So like here are things like addresses, like places where I had to send things, And I would just put them all straight on the page. Or like this, I drew a map with directions of somewhere that we were going. And this is the sort of thing that is kind of difficult to do in a weekly spread. The Hobonichi, as always, I feel like is really helpful in that respect because it's got the little tiny grids. So if you wanted to, you could actually draw a very small, neat map here. But this just kind of lends itself to it because it's like, you've got a whole page just for today. You can do whatever you want with it. And I really like that. And interestingly, at the time, I wasn't bothered by the fact that I could only see two days at a time. Maybe because I had this. This is the vertical monthly layout. And so if I wanted to kind of like more bird's eye view, I used this. And it didn't bother me that I didn't have a month on 2 pages or a week on 2 pages. So I just kind of went between this very like sort of like myopic, this very close-up view, and the kind of, sort of very big picture overview, and that was fine. The reason that I decided to switch was because it was too heavy, and I had to carry around another notebook because obviously you can't like kind of have dedicated notes in this. There's no actual note section. There are like a few note pages at the back, but like form. So if you want to like kind of make dedicated notes on something, you can't really do it in here, and so it was too much. But you see, like I went to this course on Maya hieroglyphs, and so I ended up like drawing some of the hieroglyphs in on the day just because I had extra space, and so it can be very useful for that. And I think you sort of rarely feel like you're going to run out of room, and it's nice just to be able to do whatever you want on the day, and like kind of write as big as you want and write notes, and it's very sort of freeing in that respect. You don't have to worry about writing small and fitting everything in. Normally I think a day per page has times. This one has times, and this has it has a line per half hour, which I really like. The timeline isn't great, as I've mentioned before. It's from 8 a.m. until 8 p.m., which I feel like isn't long enough in the evening for me. For some people it might not start early enough, but it's definitely like nice to have the times, and it's so big that you could even divide it in half and then write your appointments here and write to-dos or other things here. I never did that. I just kind of used empty space and didn't use it very systematically. But you can see like some days have tons of stuff and some days don't have very much. So I think in some ways it's very nice having a day per page, but now that I've got used to a week on 2 pages, I couldn't go back to this because I feel like I like to have the overview of the week, and that's something that you don't get if you have a day per page. And this is one of the reasons why I feel like the Hobonichi A6 doesn't work for me as a planner, because I tried it last year as my personal planner, and I felt like, for one thing, the day per page was too big. I didn't need that much room. And for another thing, I felt kind of like I was sort of like I had tunnel vision, like I just couldn't see beyond like today and tomorrow. I was like, I don't know what's happening the rest of the week. And even if you have a month on 2 pages, it's not quite the same. Once you're used to having a week on 2 pages, I feel like you just want to look at this and see your week. And I find that very comforting. And so I think not having that now for me is a big drawback, and I couldn't go back to that. And that is one of the many reasons why I feel like the Hobonichi Cousin is the perfect planner for me, because it has everything. It's got like all of the different layouts in one. It has, like the year, the vertical months, month on 2 pages. I've said this before, I'm sorry. I can't help it. I just love it so much. The weekly layout and the daily layout. And so you've got enough room for notes. You've got enough room for, if for some reason you have a really busy day and you want to be able to like have a whole page just for that, you can do it, and you still have your weekly layout. And that is why I love it so much. But yeah, I think that all of these planner layouts, like they all have advantages and disadvantages, and really most of it is very context dependent. So that is why I have so many planners with different layouts, because I think it's nice to be able to sort of experience. It's like getting to live in different cities or different countries, and sometimes you feel like one, and sometimes you feel like another for different purposes. So it's just nice to get to experience them all at the same time. So I hope that you enjoyed this, and I'll be really interested to hear about your views on the various layouts. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will be back soon with another video. Bye.